in the knitting studio. Today I want to tell you how I knitted this jumper. This is a basic model for knitting a jumper. It is knit quite simply. I knitted it with needles, in raglan style from top to bottom, with a small short row, and with underarm gussets. After I finished the yoke, I transferred the sleeves onto a temporary thread. I knitted the body down in the round, with no side seams. After that, I knitted the sleeves also without seams, just in the round. And I finished everything with a 2x2 ribbing, closing the ribbing. I knitted this jumper in size 44, but I will explain how to knit it in any other size. So if you want to knit a raglan jumper from top to bottom, keep watching. I used Magic Dreams yarn. Here, for 100 grams, there are 288 meters, 35% mohair, 65% acrylic. I knitted with one strand. I used only 260 grams for the jumper, but if you use some other yarn, you will most likely need a little more. I used 2.5 and 3.5 needles. I have 120 centimeters with the needle on a long cord. I took 2 pairs of needles on a long cord, and 2 pairs of needles on a short one. The short ones are for conveniently knitting the neckline. We will also need a hook, scissors of approximately the same size, a needle with a blunt end. I have a marker of a different color to indicate the beginning of the row. It is more convenient for me. Then, stoppers so that the stitches do not slip off the needles. When we are putting the knitting aside, a row counter may be needed. An additional thread, a measuring tape, a calculator, a notebook with a pen for calculations, and I think that's all. If I forgot something, I will mention it during the knitting process. Let's start with me showing you schematically this jumper, which we will be knitting. As I mentioned, this jumper is women's, teed to size 44. Here I have outlined this sweater schematically. I indicated all the measurements in centimeters. First, we need to measure the bust circumference. Here I have 92 centimeters. The half bust circumference is therefore 46 centimeters. We also need to measure the neck circumference, more specifically, the opening. That is, not the neck itself, but where you want the sweater to start. For me, it is approximately 46 centimeters. After making these measurements, we knit a sample in stockinette stitch with needles number 3.5. We will use the needles with which we will knit the entire sweater. Not the ribbing, but the actual sweater. We knitted the sample and calculated our knitting gauge. Also friends, all the lessons you need to knit this sweater will be under the video, therefore, I will not dwell on such details. So, if you don't know how to calculate your knitting gauge, there will be a lesson linked below the video. Or sometimes hints will pop up above. So, we knitted the sample, we calculated our knitting gauge. In my case, there are 2 stitches per centimeter and 3 rows per centimeter. After that, we multiply the neck circumference, our measurement, by the knitting gauge. For me, that is 2 stitches. We get 92 stitches. This is the number of stitches we initially need to cast on. We are knitting raglan from the top down, that is, casting on stitches for the neckline. For me, that is 92 stitches. This number of stitches must be even or a multiple of 4. If you are also knitting, you will be binding the neckline with ribbing 2x2. If you bind the neckline with ribbing 1x1, then this number does not necessarily have to be a multiple of 4. It just needs to be even. In my case, it is a multiple of 4 since I will have a 2x2 ribbing all around. I ended up with 92 stitches. After that, I subtract 8 stitches. These are the stitches that go on the raglan lines. I have 4 of them as usual. For each raglan line, I take 2 stitches. 2 stitches result in a total difficulty of 8 stitches. I subtract from the total number of raglan lines. I get 84 stitches. After that, what do? We divide this number of stitches by 3. It divides evenly for me. It results in 28, 28, and 28. So, I will use 28 stitches for the back, 28 for the front, and 28 will go for both sleeves. That is, I take 28 and divide it by 2 sleeves. It results in 14 stitches for each sleeve. But to ensure the sleeve is not wide, I subtract approximately 1.5 or 2 centimeters from each sleeve. So, I take 1.5 centimeters. I multiply by my knitting gauge of 2 stitches, I get 3 stitches. That is, I subtract 3 stitches from one sleeve and from the other. For each sleeve, I have 11 stitches. But since I subtracted 3 stitches, I need to add them somewhere. So that in total, I have 92 stitches. Thus, I add 3 stitches to the back and 3 stitches to the front. So, it turns out that I have 31 stitches on the back. The front also has 31 stitches and 11 stitches for the sleeves. That's it. We calculated how many stitches we need to cast on initially, and distributed the stitches to the back, front, and sleeves. In principle, we can knit the raglan from the top down. If you do not want to knit a yoke, but I will be knitting a yoke. Therefore, let's count further. Here, I have shown schematically. I transferred 31 stitches for the back, 31 stitches for the front. Here and 11 stitches for the sleeves. Now let's decide on the height of our yoke. That is, how much higher the back will be than the front. For me, this is about 5 centimeters. And I take 5 centimeters. I multiply by my knitting gauge in height by 3 rows. I get 15 rows. Thus, to knit a yoke of 5 centimeters, I will need to knit 15 rows. But this number of rows must be even. Therefore, I take 14 rows. Then, I divide the number of rows by 2 sleeves. Why by 2 sleeves? Look, here, for example, my beginning of knitting will be right here. And, while knitting the yoke, how will we knit? We will knit the back constantly, all 14 rows, and gradually capture stitches from the sleeves. Here, for example, is my beginning of knitting. I will knit the back with knit stitches, and knit a few stitches from the sleeve. I will turn. With purl stitches, I will knit the back again, and capture a few stitches from this sleeve. I will turn again. With knit stitches, I will knit the back and capture a little more here. And, thus, turning, we will be knitting with either knit or purl stitches, yes, with short row knitting, until we have captured all the sleeve stitches. But I will also capture a few stitches from the front. The front can be left alone. You can just capture the sleeve stitches, but I want the neckline in the front to be a bit deeper. So I will take a few stitches from the front. Now, look, we divide the number of rows we have by 2 sleeves. We get 7 turning points. But I will not take all 7 points on one sleeve. I will take 5 points for the sleeve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turning points, and I will take 2 points for the front. Also, here are 5 points for the sleeve and 2 points for the front. But if you, as I said, do not want to knit the front, only the sleeves, then all 7 points need to be distributed across one sleeve. I have 5 turning points for one sleeve. So I take the number of stitches for the sleeve, divide by 5 points, and get this number of stitches. Here are 2, plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, and plus 3. So I write a larger number of stitches right here. Here, I will initially take 3 stitches, and then I will knit 2 stitches. I wrote the same here. We will have increases on the raglan lines only on right side rows. We will be knitting back and forth, sometimes with knit stitches and sometimes with purl stitches. But we will make the increases before and after the raglan line. Only knitting with knit stitches on right side rows, that is clear. Next, we will deal with the increases. Let's first deal with the sleeves. By knitting this way, turning the fabric, our sprout, we will capture the entire sleeve. From this side, this sleeve is formed, and this entire sleeve. So the increases right here, specifically on the sleeves, near the raglan lines, will be identical. That is, however many we have here, the same number of increases will be on this sleeve. So we will not explore the sleeves now, but we will find out how many increases will be on the back. Suppose, initially on the back, that is right here and right here. Therefore, we will knit 14 rows, and how many increases will there be right here on the back? 14 rows means 7 rows with increases. As I said, we have increases only on right side rows. So, out of 14, only half of the rows will have increases, which is 7. We multiply the number of rows, these 7 rows, by the number of increases that we will have in these rows. On the back, we will have an increase here and here, 2 increases. So, 7 rows multiplied by 2 increases equals 14 increases that we will have on the back. After we knit our growth, 14 rows, we have dealt with the back. Now let's deal with the front. On the front, we will have 2 turning points here and here. That means we will knit 4 rows. So we will knit 1 point, a few stitches, and return on the wrong side, this is the second. Then we will knit the second point again, the third row, and the fourth we return. 4 rows, since we have 2 turning points here and here. We will knit 4 rows to form these 2 turning points. On one side and the other, yes, 4 rows, this gives us 2 rows with increases. So here we also divide the number of rows by 2, since we have increases only in the right side rows. Therefore, 2 rows multiplied by 2 increases. Why 2? Because we will have an increase near the raglan line here and here. We get 4 increases. So, after we knit 14 rows of growth, we will have 5 centimeters in height. The same number of stitches will be added to the sleeves. To the back, 14 stitches will be added. To the front, 4 will be added. Now, in order to have the same number of stitches on the front and back after knitting our growth, yes, just like on the sleeves, we need to equalize the back and the front. Look, we have 14 stitches on the back. We subtract 4 stitches of the front from these 14, and we get 10 extra stitches that we will add to the back. We take these 10 stitches, we divide by 2. We leave 5 stitches, half, yes, from 10 stitches. We leave half 5 to the back and add 5 to the front. In order for us to have the same number of stitches on the front and back after knitting the growth, so we subtract 5 stitches from the back, add to the front, resulting in the back having 26 and the front having 36 stitches. Then we divide the front into 6 parts. This is to count how many stitches to pick up here. We know that there will be 2 turning points, one here and the other one, but we do not know the number of stitches. We take the total number of front stitches, divide by 6 parts, resulting in 6 times 6, yes. So look, we divided the front into 6 parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do not touch the 2 central parts, we will not knit here. Here there are 6 stitches, yes, 2 parts of 6, 12 stitches we do not touch, but here we will have 6 stitches, and here. Thus, one turning point has 6 stitches, and the second turning point has 6 stitches. Also here, we will knit more by 6 stitches 2 times. We will return and knit even more by 6 stitches back. Thus, we have distributed and found out how many stitches we need to pick up here. Yes, 6. The growth is 5 centimeters, 14 rows. So, we calculated that we will add 14 stitches to the back. Here, at the front, 4. 4 at the front and 9 for the sleeves as I calculated. How many will be added to the sleeves? Knitting. Look, we will knit from the beginning, yes. We have 2 turning points. We will knit to the front once, and then again. That is, as we knit, we will make increases for the sleeves here, yes, 2 times, since we have 2 turning points. So, 2 rows multiplied by 2 increases. Since there is an increase here and here, it results in 4 increases already for the little sleeve. After that, we will knit, not reaching this raglan line. Yes, that is, there will be no more increases here, only an increase will be here. We will knit like this. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We will knit 5 times like this, making only 1 increase here, so there will be 5 increases. Plus 4 increases which I mentioned earlier when we knit the front, 4 plus 5 equals 9. 9 increases for 1 sleeve. We will add 9 here, after we knit the growth, yes, during the knitting of the growth, and add 9 here. I wrote this down to calculate how many stitches in total we will add for our entire knitting. I have 36 stitches. Initially, there were 92 stitches. Let's add 36, which makes 128 stitches. We will have on the needles after we knit the sprout. If you didn't understand something regarding knitting the sprout, I again have a lesson. Here, above is the link. Go ahead and watch. There, I probably explain everything in more detail. So, we calculated how to knit the sprout and what we do first. On needles number 3.5 on those needles, with which we plan to knit the whole fabric, we cast on 92 stitches and plus 1 stitch to join the knitting in the round. We knit the first row straight in knit stitches and simultaneously place the markers on the raglan line. I take 1 marker for 1 raglan line. That is, I place the marker between 2 stitches of 1 raglan line, so we don't have too many markers. So, I have 4 markers in total. And we knitted this sprout, which we calculated, for 14 rows. We knitted and finished up to this point. This will be the beginning of my knitting, and I should have 128 stitches on my needles. After we knitted the sprout, according to our calculations, we knit the raglan. Next, we simply make increases on the raglan lines before and after the raglan line. That is, up to the required bust circumference, up to the armpit area. After knitting the sprout, in the first row, I had increases on the raglan lines. In the second row, I knitted straight and so on alternated. And half of the yoke, about this distance, I knitted alternating increases. I had them in every second row. And from this moment, about halfway, yes, of the yoke. And down here, I made increases already in every third row, that is, every 2 rows. You can make increases a bit differently. For example, always in every second row, or always in every third row. It all depends on your yoke height. Also, the number of rows is important, your figure, the model you are knitting, the density of knitting, and so on. But I'm telling how I knitted. In 1 row, I had 8 increases. That is, it turns out before and after each raglan line. How to make increases, you can decide for yourself. Here on the raglan lines, look for the lesson with increases under the video as I did. Therefore, I won't explain it now. After I knitted the yoke, I had 128 stitches. I added 160 stitches, and I had 288 stitches on the needles. In the next row, we will join the front and back together and set aside the sleeves. Here, we knit 82 stitches in the next row. This is the back. Next, we transfer 62 stitches of the sleeve to a spare yarn. After that, we cast on 4 stitches for the underarm here. That is, we add 4 stitches to the needle. You can also add in any way. I added just as I did with the increases after the raglan line. After that, We knit the front 82 stitches and then the next arm. We transfer it to a spare yarn and add 4 stitches for the underarm. You can add more than 4 stitches for the underarm if you are knitting an adult model, but I added 4. So, I had, after knitting the yoke, 288 stitches, and it turns out I set aside the sleeve stitches because we're not knitting the sleeves yet. I removed the sleeve stitches. I added 4 stitches under the arms. I ended up with 172 stitches for the body. By the way, we add the raglan line stitches to the back and to the sleeves. Here, there are 2 raglan line stitches. 1 stitch is added to the back, 1 to the sleeve. Also here, 1 stitch to the sleeve, 1 to the front. After that, we remove all markers. We leave only 1 marker that indicates the beginning of the row. We join the knitting in a circle. We continue knitting in a circle to the desired height of the jumper. That is from the underarm area and down. It turns out that I knitted 95 rows in straight stockinette stitch with 172 stitches. Plus 1 row, 96. The one when we moved the stitches for the sleeve to the spare thread. So, I have knitted 96 rows. I switched to a 2x2 ribbing. I changed the needles. I took a smaller size, number 2.75. I knitted the 2x2 ribbing with white yarn. I have about 5.5 to 6 centimeters in height of the ribbing. That is 18 rows. After that, I closed the ribbing with a needle. The lesson on closing will be below the video. All done with the body. After this, we will start knitting the sleeves. What do we need to knit the sleeve? We need to measure the wrist circumference with a tape measure. Right here, right here. So, mine is 15 centimeters. To this number, I add about 7 centimeters. That makes 22 centimeters. I don't know, you can add a bit more or a bit less. But for me, that is 7 centimeters. Then we multiply 22 centimeters by the gauge. Mine is 2 stitches. We get 44 stitches. This number should be a multiple of 4. Since I have a 2x2 ribbing here, if you have a 1x1 ribbing, then this number should be a multiple of 2. So, in the end, I will have 44 stitches here, it should turn out. And we also need to measure the length of the sleeve excluding the ribbing. This one, from the armpit to the point where the elastic starts. I have a total of 46 and about 6 centimeters here. The elastic is about 40 centimeters. I have the sleeve length. Also, 40 centimeters multiplied by the knitting density. For 3 rows here, in stocking stitch right. We will knit the sleeve in stocking stitch. And we get 120 rows. So we need to knit 120 rows. And reach 44 stitches, making decreases. We transfer the sleeve stitches. They are on an extra thread, yes, 62 stitches. Here we have the sleeves, 62 stitches. We transfer them to the needles we used for the main fabric, yes, number 3.5. We start knitting the first row, but we start from the armpit and go in the round. This is how we will knit. From the armpit, how do we knit? We cast on 4 stitches. Look at the start of the row. What do? We knit 2 stitches for the underarm. We do have underarms there, yes, under the armpits. We cast on 4 stitches. Here are our underarms and 2 stitches out of 4. We knit 3 in knit stitches. Then we cast on 2 more stitches. Here we have space between the sleeve stitches and the underarms. There is a gap here, and we cast on 2 stitches here. In the end, we get 4 stitches at the start of the row. Next, we knit 62 stitches for the sleeve. We reach the end of the row. And here as well, between the underarm stitches and the sleeve stitches, we add 2 stitches and knit 2 underarm stitches. Thus, we will have 4 stitches here. Here, 4, and here, 4. And plus the sleeve stitches, 62 stitches. In total, we get 70 stitches in this row. So here we have 70 stitches. We need to reach 44 stitches. And knit 120 rows next, if you want your sleeve to decrease evenly. What you do, here I have marked it, but I didn't knit like this. But for those who want the sleeve to decrease evenly, what we do, we take the total number of stitches we currently have on the needles and subtract the number of stitches we need for the wrist. We get 26, that is, we need to make 26 decreases. And since we will have 2 decreases in each row, we divide 26 decreases by 2. This gives us 13 rows with decreases. As we knit 120 rows, we need to knit 13 of them with decreases. And how we distribute, we take 120 rows, total number of rows we need to knit, and divide by the number of rows with 2 decreases. In each row, yes, by 13, we get 9.2 rows. What do? We subtract from this number from the whole. Yes, we subtract 1, write 8 rows. And the next row, 1 row with decreases, we take all this in parentheses and repeat it 13 times. Since we have 13 rows with decreases, so now we consider 8 rows plus 1 row with decreases, 9 rows multiplied by 13, well, by 13 repetitions. Yes, we get 117 rows, but we need to knit 120 rows. Yes, and we take from 120 rows. Subtract this amount, we get 3 rows, meaning we need to add 3 more rows to this scheme. So, how do you knit? After getting 70 stitches, you knit according to the scheme. For example, you need to repeat this scheme 13 times, yes. And plus knit 3 rows straight. This is for those who want to decrease the sleeve evenly. I did it a bit differently. I had 4 stitches for the underarm added, yes. And we added 2 stitches on the sides. In total, 8 stitches were added to our number of sleeve stitches. Therefore, I decided to decrease these same 8 stitches right here, knitting the sleeve every other row. I have 2 decreases in 1 row. So, look, here is my sleeve. I highlighted 1 stitch right from the armpit. That is 1 such braid. 1 stitch that I will knit straight. To the right of this stitch and to the left of this stitch, I will make decreases. So, I have 2 decreases in 1 row. And between these decreases, there is 1 central stitch, which I simply knit straight. It turns out that I need to knit 8 rows. Of these, 4 rows will have decreases with 2 decreases in each row. How did I make the decrease? I, as I mentioned, highlighted this central stitch, which I knitted straight to the right of it. I knitted 2 stitches together with a left-leaning decrease. That is, leaning toward this stitch, to the left of this stitch, I knitted 2 stitches together with a right-leaning decrease. So, my decreases were going towards this central stitch, with a left lean, and here with a right lean. Also, you can find all the lessons on these decreases under the video. So look, I decided that 8 rows will be used to decrease these 8 stitches. Therefore, my total number of rows was 120 as we counted. So, from 120 rows, I subtracted 8 rows, which I will now knit and decrease 8 stitches, right? And I have 112 rows left, also from 70 stitches, the number of stitches I have on the needles here. I subtract these 8 stitches, which I will decrease. And I will have 62 stitches remaining. Next, I decided that here, at the end before our cuff, I will knit 8 rows straight. I simply want to knit straight without decreases, therefore, from 112 rows, which I still need to knit, yes. I subtract 8 rows that I will knit straight here. It turns out that I still need to knit 4 rows, and then we calculate similarly. That is, we calculate how many rows knitting these rows. I will need to make decreases. I take the number of rows I have here. After I made the decreases, 62 stitches, subtract the number of stitches I need to end up with 44. And I get 18 stitches. That means I need to make 18 decreases. Knitting 104 rows, 18 decreases divided by 2, because we have 2 decreases in each row, gives us 9 rows with decreases. Then, the total number of rows, 104, is divided by 9 rows with decreases, giving us 11.6 rows. We subtract 1 from the whole number and write down 10 rows. The next row will have decreases. We take the forks and repeat 9 times, since we have 9 rows of decreases. There should be 9 repetitions. We calculate 10 rows plus 1, 11 rows. We multiply 11 by 9 repetitions, which gives us 99 rows, but we need to knit 104 rows. So we subtract 99 from the total number of rows, getting 5 rows. And we compile our algorithm. We knit 5 rows, and then follow the pattern for 10 rows, with decreases, repeating that 9 times. In the end, we will knit 104 rows. Not stitches, but rows, so we currently have 70 stitches on the needles. We included 4 stitches for the underarm and 2 stitches on the sides. Thus, we have 70, not 62 stitches. After that, we begin to knit the first 8 rows. Here in a circle, making decreases in every second row, that is, decreasing every other row. We will have 2 decreases in each row. After knitting 8 rows this way, we will have 62 stitches on the needles. Next, we will follow our pattern. Rows from 9 to 112 amount to 104 rows. We will knit according to the pattern, making decreases. We should have 44 stitches left on the needles. We will then knit 8 rows straight. This is our third action. From row 113 to 120, we simply knit 8 rows straight. After that, we change the needles. We switch to smaller needles, 275, take white yarn and knit a 2x2 ribbing. For 18 rows, I will do the same on the sleeves, just like on the body at the bottom. 18 rows with 44 stitches, then we bind off the 2x2 ribbing. Just as we did with the body, we knitted 1 sleeve, we will knit the second one the same way. After that, we will knit the neckline. I knitted the neckline in white as well, using size 275 needles. First, I knitted a false edging. I also have a lesson, a detailed lesson on knitting this false edging. And then, I switched to ribbing 2x2. And I closed the ribbing with a needle. It's also a needle closure, as I mentioned. It will be linked below the video, the only thing. I had 92 stitches here. Initially, we cast on, when we started knitting the sweater, but 92 stitches seemed a bit too few to me. So I added 8 stitches. I added them then. When I knitted the false edging, I just added them unnoticed. I ended up with not 92 stitches, but 100 stitches. It turns out 100 stitches, which is also a multiple of 4. So here, the ribbing 2x2 consists of 100 stitches. We close the ribbing with a needle, and that's it. The sweater is ready. We hide all the threads and wash it. I hope everything was clear to you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I will try to answer. Thank you, friends, for watching. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Share the tutorial with friends. I wish you happy knitting.